So the past couple of vlogs that I pushed up to the channel was this idea, Wargaming 101. This idea that independent of the system that you enjoy, whether it's Battletech, Chain of Command, God Tier, X-Wing miniatures, all systems that I love, historicals, DBA, DBN, there are certain wargaming fundamentals at play that if we can understand them and how they operate, build that tactic checklist, you can port them over to other systems. There are also other aspects of, trying to think how to capture it in a vlog here for you guys, because I want to cut down that learning curve. I want you to go to the gaming club this weekend and just absolutely dominate. It goes beyond player personality. There's certain fundamentals at play, certain tactica at play from a player perspective, even independent of a wargaming system. Do you want to call it psychology? Do you want to call it tricknology? And we're going to get into tricknology as it relates to a couple of Battletech ideas. There was a request for that. And I've been thinking about that, and I've been looking at some of my tricknology Battletech lists. So we're going to push that out in the next couple of days as I kind of codify that a little bit more. That's what I want to jump into in this vlog. Fundamental understandings, mental aspects of wargaming to kind of help you dominate the table. And again, independent of system. So these are my terms that I've used to capture this understanding through my own experience, what I've realized along the way, from getting the beat down at many, many tournaments and taking a step back once my bruised ego was totally destroyed and saying, okay, what the heck just happened here? What just went down? And really looking. And of course, just over the years of my channel, the amazing feedback and opportunity that all of you have given me. If you remember me from such a time, a name that I have not heard in some time, Way of Sam Han, we've kind of all grown and evolved. So this is kind of the capstone of my understanding. I've put my own terms to it. You will adjust it with your own terms and make it better. Active versus passive players. Active versus passive. You want to be an active player. You do not want to be a passive player. Active player. Okay. We've got our armies set up. It's turn one. And let's play the mission. An active player is one that looks at the mission first. Looks at their army, their armada, whatever it's going to be. And they say, this is what I'm going to do. This unit is going to go here and capture the high ground and support. This unit's going to go over here and offer long-range fire support. This unit's going to move to the center of the table and engage. They look at what they are going to do, what they need to do, almost not really paying attention to the opponent's army. You come up with a plan, you enact that plan. And in enacting that plan, you force your opponent to react to it. A passive player that you don't want to be is one that looks and says, okay, well, Fritz has got this unit here coming forward. I'm going to have to deal with that unit. I've got to destroy it. And then over here, he's sending this unit up the flank. He's got 3 Jenners running up the flank. Well, I got to deal with that. If a passive player is one that is reacting to what their opponent does, what this means is you're 2 or 3 steps behind the game. They're always going to be ahead of you. And truthfully, do you really know what your opponent's going to do? You have ideas based on the mission. Oh, well, look, I need to capture this objective on the hill. Well, yeah, Fritz is going to send a bunch of units up there to get it. But do you really know what I'm going to do? If you've been listening to my vlogs, if you've been had the good fortune to play games with me together, you know, like, I'm going to charge if that happens. There was a Chain of Command game, World War II historicals, where we had an objective jump-off point in the middle of this road, and we had some walls and kind of buildings on either side of the road. And my 3 infantry teams are up against there. The British are on the other side of this wall. We're literally a street separating us, maybe 50 or 60 infantry. And we're in cover. We're shooting. We're firing. Nothing's really happening because of cover. A couple of shock tokens. You take the shock off with a senior officer, junior officer. And I'm looking and I'm like, I give the order. Hand grenades and charge. We're charging. We are charging. And that was insane because The British are fortified. They've got machine gun teams, but I was taking the glory that day. Everyone's leaving with an Iron Cross from that perspective. So you look at that and you would I'm going to do that? You listen to the vlogs, you're like, yeah, Fritz is going to charge, tabletop glory. But tactically, you'd look and say, that's nuts, that's insane, that's crazy, no one's going to do that. As a passive player, when you make those assumptions, you really don't know what's going to happen. You really don't know what they're going to do. So you'll be a few steps behind, reacting to what the opponent does. It might be true, it might be false. You're always playing catch up to the tactica. This becomes magnified because at the beginning of the game, you're at your strongest, whatever, squadron points, power points, tokens, support points, battle value, C-bills, tonnage. We're going through all the checklists to buy stuff. You're at your strongest. But every game turn that goes on, you lose units. Stuff happens. You become less and less effective. You might know the right tactica. There's been mid-end game where I'm like, yes, this is the tactica. I know what to do. But I'm like, I've got nothing left to enact it. I've just got, invisible models on the table or in my head to enact it. I don't have the model mass to execute on the table. So this becomes challenging because you're going to be steps behind. You're going to be losing stuff. You're going to see tactica at that point when you finally catch up to the game and what the player's doing. And you're not going to have the model mass to do it. So this idea of being bold, being decisive, capturing momentum, being an active player, force your opponent to react. That doesn't mean make crazy moves. That doesn't mean do stuff that's not going to work. All solid tactica, everything that you've been doing. But turn one, be decisive. Force them to react. Force them to engage. Force them to counter. Take that momentum, capture it. Be an active player. Do not be a passive player. This is the first aspect of actually this is kind of the second or third aspect of wargaming. We'll frame this really quick. The first aspect of wargaming is, look, you just got to learn the rules. You don't have to memorize the rules. That's what your best buddies for or the internet's for, right? But you need to understand the base rules of your system to know what's possible or not. If I don't understand how the assault works and I've got my unit up there thinking I'm going to capture an objective, and now we're moving into the assault phase and it is possible to get assaulted, I get assaulted. I didn't know that. I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know Fritz could do that. So you have to understand what you're capable of, how the game works to a certain degree, turn by turn. Then once you have that, then you start looking at the units and how the units execute those game rules. What are their abilities? What are their powers? How do they move? How would they capture mission objectives? How would they engage your opponent? You start putting that together, and then at that point, the third phase is where you begin active versus passive. And it's not like you got to master one of these. Once you get enough of a understanding, you can incorporate the next piece. But definitely, if we're looking at these player tactica, these player things that work, active versus passive, be an active player in the game. Force the initiative. Take the momentum. Force your opponent to react. Do not be a passive player, because turn one, turn two, you can get away with that. But at that point, they've got momentum. You've got model losses. And then as you start to see the tactica and you realize what you need to do, it's going to be too late. You're not going to have enough model mass on the table.